Hi everybody, it's Az here from Heel vs Babyface with an episode of AzChats. We haven't done this in such a long time, so I thought we'd get stuck into it. Now, today I actually want to go into and address the subscription losses once more with the World of Warcraft. It's something which is very interesting indeed when you package it up with previous X packs. Now, if you're unaware, Blizzard have announced their quarterly figures again, which finish at the end of June of 2013, and they've announced that the World of Warcraft has lost a further 600,000 subscribers. But more worryingly, it means that since the beginning of Mists of Pandaria, they've actually lost 2.3 million subscribers. And that is 23%, nearly a quarter of their whole player base over the course of a meager 9 months. Now, just to put it into some kind of perspective for you, when the very first X-Pack came out, which was the Burning Crusade, the quarterly figures showed a big lift in the World of Warcraft subscribers to approximately 9 million. And this is March 2007's figures, and I'm very proud to say this is when I joined the World of Warcraft. So I was technically part of this surge in WoW subs. Now, when the Burning Crusade finished its life, it was on approximately 11.5 million subscribers. So it gained a further 2.5 million subscribers throughout the course of its life. And it rode that crest into Wrath of the Lich King, which peaked September to December 2010 at the best part of 12 million. It actually just crept over the 12 million mark. And even though it went on a small downward spiral towards the end of Wrath of the Lich King, which could possibly be contributed to the fact that ICC was open for a whole year, and the lack of content in that final year was rather staggering, it still ended on a very, very healthy 11.2 million subscribers. That's when Cataclysm came in, and this is the X-Pack which wasn't taken too well by the subscription base. Now, in the build-up to Cataclysm, it all looked very exciting. We had Deathwing, which was this monstrous member of the Dragonflight. We then had the Sundering of Azeroth. There were some very exciting aspects happening within the game. And for my own personal experience, it was enhanced by watching some phenomenal videos by Total Biscuit, which were really engaging, which were very immersive, and they certainly built up the X-Pack for me. Cataclysm hit, and it all came crashing down a bit soon. The levelling up process, in only going up 5 levels instead of 10, suddenly removed the journey of levelling up to me. It suddenly made levelling become a means to an end as opposed to a storyline that we had. In Burning Crusade, we felt as if we were genuinely experiencing Outland, this crazy new off Azeroth world that we'd discovered. And then during the course of Wrath of the Lich King, we had the whole of Northrend and the exceptional storyline and lore that followed Arthas and the Lich King and his story. Come Cataclysm, we had these new zones, and there were only 5 of them, and that's all we had to do, is go up 5 levels with little choice of where to actually go to. We could start off in Hyjal, we could start off in Vashir, and it kind of got a little bit linear after that. You could skip a zone to move to another zone, but that seemed to be the only alternative. But that said, Cataclysm, although it saw a downward spire in subscription numbers, which fell approximately 1 million in the first 6 months of its life, when Cataclysm ended, which was just short of 2 years, it was still once more on a healthy number of 9.1 million subs. So between the first Q of 2007 and midway through 2012, there was only 100,000 differential between subscription numbers. 9 million, ending 5.5 odd years later, 9.1 million. So even an X-Pack which hadn't been taken to people's hearts had still done pretty well. Now, WoW is definitely showing its age. It is a game which has been going for approximately 9 odd years. So even when Cataclysm ended, it was about 8 years old. And no matter how hard developers can work on a title, they're always going to see a filter of people off as new and exciting technologies come in and new games also come to the horizon. But one thing which held Blizz and the World of Warcraft apart from everybody else was the very fact that there was no direct rival to the World of Warcraft. There was no MMO game out there which could even touch it. It was in a league of its own, in a world of its own, and even at 9.1 million subscribers, it was pretty much 8 million ahead of anything resembling a rival. So it didn't have that aspect to worry about. But with Cataclysm being an X-Pack which wasn't taken to the fans' hearts, surely the next X-Pack had to be something special to booster those numbers. And I remember watching BlizzCon for the reveal of the next World of Warcraft X-Pack, and then when they announced Mists of Pandaria, my jaw nearly dropped. And it didn't drop in the same way that it dropped when I saw Arthas in Wrath of the Lich King, and it didn't drop in the same way that I saw Deathwing, which was exciting on the reveal, and then we ended up giving him a manicure. But that's irrelevant. I was suddenly like, what the hell is this? It was an X-Pack to me which seemed to already from the outset lack any direction. There was no main villain, and the main villain would be revealed throughout the course of the X-Pack's life. They tried to make it a more sedate X-Pack after the Sundering of Azeroth, which I thought was probably the wrong move to go. When you're down, keep people down and keep punching them. Keep punching them till they can't get back up. I was ready for something to say, just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, Arrgh! But no, we had these pandas that were just lazy, lying around, asking for help, handing out, and nothing on that reveal made me excited for the next X-Pack. But I love WoW, and let's make that perfectly clear. I spent a good 6.x years on the game, and I love to play it, but I do find nowadays that I'm finding my own entertainment predominantly with previous content as opposed to regular content. So I was always willing to give Mists of Pandaria a go. I went into the beta myself. I did my beta videos when I first started my YouTube channel. Some of them pretty crap, and then hopefully getting a little bit better for you. But one thing that I did notice throughout the course of the beta was some terrible aspects of the game, and things like questing had gone to pot. It was very grindy. The dungeons were really easy. I was struggling to find things which I thought, oh my god, this will be taken to the subscription base's heart. I found it very, very difficult indeed to produce too many positive outlooks. And when I did do a lot of praise videos, it tended, which is a little bit sad for me, it tended to be on more aesthetic based things. Those mounts look great. Those spell effects look great. Those armors look great. That location looks great. But when it came to the nooks and the cranny and the actual content itself, it did fall apart for me. But the numbers speak for themselves. And when Mists of Pandaria was released, the subscription base actually raised from 9.1 million at the end of Cata to 10 million. People came back to the World of Warcraft to see what they were missing. The drop-off which had happened throughout Cataclysm seemed to be reversed, and Blizzard seemed to be vindicated with their decision to move the game to Pandaria. And I must confess, I was somewhat shocked at that raise in figures up to 10 million, and I was almost ready to hold my hands up and say, okay. But because of the nagging doubts that I'd had all throughout the beta, I was more concerned about waiting for the life of the expansion to happen and see what the drop-off was going to be, because I was absolutely convinced it was going to have one. And I think I recall in a particular scathing video that I did, possibly in Shadow Pan Monastery over in Kun-Lai Summit, when I was doing my first heroic, or one of my first heroic dungeons, which of course were not heroic in the slightest. And I mentioned a few things about Blizzard seemed to have ripped the soul out of the game, because dungeoneering for me was very important. I love 5-person dungeons, and I loved it as the stepping stone into raiding content as a way to gear myself up. And I think I made the outrageous, or what could be construed as outrageous, decision to say, I can quite easily see Miss Pandaria potentially losing a staggering 4 million subscribers throughout its life, because I think when you rip the soul out of a game, then that is what's going to cause people to leave. But of course, with it going from 9.1 million subscribers to 10 million subscribers, I was like, well, I'm probably way off board here. But since then, Blizzard lost on the next quarter 400,000. So the World of Warcraft dropped to 9.6 million subscribers. Even then, I thought, well, that's to be expected. You know, people are always going to come back to an X-Pack to experience it, and that could be it. They could be just done with experiencing it for 30 days, for 60 days, and said, right, okay, I've seen what I needed to see, and move on. So to me, it wasn't that much of a decline. I was like, it was to be expected. People move back off into console gaming, or potentially into other MMOs. There can be a little filter off. There was Star Wars out, there was Rift out, Guild Wars 2 was on the horizon, things like that. Then came the next quarterly figures, and this to me was rather staggering, because on the next quarter, Blizzard lost a staggering 1.3 million subscribers. This was an unprecedented drop in the subscription base, never seen before in the life of the World of Warcraft. And I kind of got the intimation that people were now, 6 months into the life of the game, thinking, well, this is not the direction and not the content which we desired. It was very grindy. It was very difficult to get your valor points. It was very difficult to find tough content, tough and engaging content that was outside of raiding. Scenarios proved to me to be an absolute turkey. The dungeons which we've discussed were not even worth their salt. And this 1.3 million subscriber drop off, and this is after patch 5.1 had hit, definitely screamed to me that the fan base was not happy with the content and not happy with the direction of the game. But even though I thought, okay, this is where I thought things were going to happen, the next patch was 5.2, and this was a big patch to hit because it was a raid patch. Not only was it a raid patch bringing in the Throne of Thunder, but we also had the Isle of Thunder and the Isle of Giants just as additional continents. Small continents, small islands, but it was definitely two brand new areas. So we had a raid, we had an island quest hub, there were lots of rare elites popped onto those islands as well that you could suddenly get valor points from, even if they didn't drop anything of that much worth. For myself personally, 5.2 brought in the Canrathad and the Green Fire quest line for a Warlock, and I was very excited about that, considering I hadn't managed to legitimately kill Canrathad on the PTR for patch 5.2. I was definitely willing to give it a crack, and thankfully managed to do it, record it, and put it up on my YouTube channel. And I personally thought patch 5.2 was the best patch of Mists of Pandaria by far. I quite like the idea of unlocking the different stages of the Isle of Thunder. It involved cooperation, something which seemed to be significantly lacking within the World of Warcraft. I like the rare elites, even though I do believe they should have dropped something a little bit more exciting than just Valor Points and Shanzi Ritual Stones. We did have the incredibly fun Troves of the Thunder King single-person scenario, which is just a loot-based scenario where you run around grabbing as much gold and as many goodies as you could possibly get, with the very small chance of finding a 502 epic within one of the chests as well. So to me, patch 5.2 was an excellent patch, and I believed it was actually going to bring people back to the World of Warcraft. Not huge numbers, but I certainly thought that the downward spiral of the subscriptions would peak up. So I believe the Isle of Thunder, patch 5.2, will probably bring back about 300,000. And I was expecting on the next quarterly figures that they would have gone up slightly by about 300,000, which would have brought the World of Warcraft to around about 8.6 odd million. But the figures were released a couple of days ago, and Blizzard have lost a further 600,000 subscribers. So what I thought was actually going to be an increase of about 300k suddenly was a deficit of 600k, 900,000 differential between what I thought and what actually happened. And again, the most concerning thing is the fact that this came off the back of a big content raid patch. They still lost over 500,000 subscribers, and that brought the numbers down for the World of Warcraft from 10 million at the start of Mists of Pandaria down to 7.7 million 9 months into the life. We're not even a year in. Now, the differential between the other X packs, Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, and Cataclysm, had come nowhere near this. Burning Crusade and Wrath were both upscales. Cataclysm was a downscale, but even Cataclysm lost 2 million over the course of its life, which was pretty much 2 years. Whereas here, there's 2.3 million drop off within a meager 9 months. And more concerning is the next quarterly figures are going to be based around the release of patch 5.3, which I thought was a very, very weak X-Pack. Very, very weak addition, a very, very weak patch. We had Battlefield Barons, which is nothing short of a grindy, weekly, boring, monotonous addition to the game. I hardly see anybody out there whatsoever. The storyline for the Horde was pretty cool, leading up into the Siege of Orgrimmar for patch 5.4, but for the Alliance, again, very weak, very non-engaging. Other than that, there was very little content which was brought into the game. So in 3 months' time, when we have the 5.3 figures in, I'm a little bit worried. Now, I've chatted to a few people about what they think the subscription drop-off would potentially be. And I know it sounds very negative because we're all saying subscription drop-off. Because I cannot see, and the people that I spoke to could not see, that 5.3 was actually going to bring people back to WoW. There was nothing there which said, oh yeah, people are going to flock back to WoW for this. And I can see it quite easily going between 800,000 to 1 million. Quite easily, based on the figures on patch 5.1, which was, I believe, not that strong a patch. And also, I still think it's better than 5.3. I think 5.3 has been the weakest patch to date. So suddenly, let's just speculate for a moment. And let's say the quarterly figures come out in 3 months' time for patch 5.3, and the World of Warcraft has lost an additional 1 million. That will put WoW at 6.7 million, a drop-off of around 3.3 million subscribers in 1 year. Now, I definitely take the argument on board that WoW is getting old. It's nearly 9 years old, and it's staggering, and it's a credit to the developers at how popular they've managed to keep the game for so long. But the crux of the matter is, when Cataclysm ended at 9.1 million subscribers, which was a slight drop-off, there was nothing to worry about. There was absolutely nothing to worry about at all. There was no rival to the game, and it was something that could easily be rectified if it had the correct content. Because even the allure of console gaming and things like that still wasn't detracting people in their millions to play this fantastic MMO. But Mr. Pandaria came out, and every one of my real life friends that I play with have just filtered off. I am last man standing in my real life friends. Now, they've not done anything as dramatic as to say, I've had enough of this rubbish, I'm off. They've simply said, this is not good. This is not the kind of content I want to play. And they've just let their accounts go dormant. They just haven't renewed at the end of the month or the quarter or whatever they actually paid out to, which is a shame. So if WoW does drop to approximately 6.7 million subscribers after the next quarterly figures are released, it's pretty evident already that the subscription numbers are in freefall. And is there anything that can be done? Well, Blizzard definitely banging out the content for Mr. Pandaria, and I must confess that the cynic inside of me does kind of think, well, I think they're potentially banging this out because they really want to get rid now of Mist. They want to get through this content as quickly as they possibly can without looking as if it's going to be that cheap, and hope that the next X-Pack, which is 99.9% going to be announced at BlizzCon this year in November, is going to be sufficiently exciting and interesting to bring people back. And herein we have another problem. BlizzCon is in November, and BlizzCon is around about the time that two major events happen within the gaming industry's life. And it doesn't matter if you're a PC gamer or a console gamer, because in November we're going to see the launches of both the PlayStation 4 and also the Xbox One. So Blizzard are no longer in competition with other MMOs. They are now in competition with the giants of Sony and Microsoft. They are competing with the console marketplace. I've pre-ordered an Xbox One. I don't know many people who game who haven't got a pre-order set for one of the consoles, be it the PS4 or the Xbox. And I know for a fact that in November, on the release day of those consoles, I'm going to be on there. I'm going to be on there straight away. Hopefully streaming on Twitch using the stream function on the Xbox One, playing whatever I'm going to be playing, Battlefield 4 or whatever launch title is announced nearer the time. But that's what I aim to be doing. Now, BlizzCon comes just a little bit before the release of these consoles, and something big has got to happen. And I don't think just the announcement of a new X-Pack will be enough to deter people from saying, right, well, I'm getting on my consoles and I'm locking myself out for a substantial period of time here. I think it needs to go that step further. Now, let's just say, for argument's sake, the next X-Pack that they're going to announce will be the return of the Burning Crusade. If you've been doing the Rathian storyline, the legendary storyline, Rathian constantly hints and hints and hints and hints and hints at the return of the Burning Legion, but not with us going to another aspect of Draenor, but with the Burning Legion invading Azeroth. And the Burning Legion burning cities is one of the great lines that Rathian said. He says, cities will burn. And that in itself is quite an exciting prospect, because again it lends itself to the world being redesigned to go around this aspect of cities being destroyed and the Burning Legion coming in en masse. But I think it needs to go that one step further. So whatever X-Pack is announced, not only do they have to say, ladies and gentlemen, this is the new X-Pack, and it's got to be sufficiently exciting for people to go, whoa, oh, I want to play that. I want to get my hands on that. But I believe they've also got to say, and the beta begins now. And they literally have PCs set there ready for the fans at BlizzCon to go on and start testing the brand new X-Pack, the beta testing for that. Not only that though, so not only do they have to announce a massively exciting X-Pack which really gets the blood pumping, not only in my opinion do they have to announce that the beta is starting pretty much immediately, but on top of that, the beta process has to be of a sufficient period of time that people aren't allowed to forget about it and wander back onto these two amazing new consoles which are coming out too. Because if Battlefield 4 proves to be really exciting, or Call of Duty 615 prove to be that exciting, then people are going to be rooted to those games for months and not participating in the beta. So if the beta runs for something like 3 months and then the X-Pack comes out in, say, February, March of 2014, maybe that's sufficient enough to compete. But something has to be done because these numbers have to be stemmed. And Blizzard aren't coming out at the minute and saying anything other than typical corporate rhetoric. Yes, we've had a drop in subscription numbers. It's to be expected throughout the course of an X-Pack's life. We expect them to drop further before the end of the X-Pack. There's nothing there that gives us hope. And I love WoW. I've said that and I genuinely love the game. I may be finding my own entertainment in earlier content, but that's irrelevant because I'm still on the game and I'm still enjoying the game. What I want to see from the developers and from the heads of the game is some assertiveness. I want to see a war cry. I want to see and hear a speech which is going to make my blood boil inside with excitement. I want them to come out and say, look, okay, you're speaking with your wallets and this is clearly not going the way or the direction that you want us to go. But don't you fear, because we have got things planned. We are committed to this game. We are committed to bringing people back to this game. And we want you and the people that dropped off to be part of that, and we've got some exciting plans in store. I want to hear that from Blizzard, and all we're getting is corporate rhetoric. We want that leadership and direction. We don't want the vanity and the ego that seems to be going along with them at the moment. There does seem to be far too much love of their own notoriety and their own tweets, Facebookings, etc. There seems to be too much ego and not enough action. There seems to be that stubborn, obstinate attitude that they know best, and the client base are not saying that. The client base is saying we're speaking with our wallets, we're speaking with our money, and in the course of a meagre 9 months, an unprecedented number of people have left the World of Warcraft. And I'm pretty convinced it's not just due to the life of the World of Warcraft getting on a bit in age. I don't think it's got anything to do with that whatsoever. I am totally 100% believing it's got to do with the content of the game. So, can they turn it around? I believe there is plenty of life left in the World of Warcraft. It might not be next generation graphics or anything like that, but I love the way and the style of the game. I love the cartoony aspect of it, and I love the way that they do upgrade the graphics engine constantly, so we get some better shades, we get some better textures, and I think that the look of the World of Warcraft is actually, to me, one of the massive selling points of the game itself. When you see a screenshot of WoW, you know immediately it's WoW. You see a screenshot of an other MMO, it could easily be a vast majority. They seem to be very, very samey looking and similar looking indeed. All they have to do in inverted commas, is listen. They have to begin to genuinely listen to the concerns of the community. I'm not saying do everything that people want, because we do have some pretty daft ideas at the best of times. But what I am saying is, people are saying this is not the type of grindy content that we want. This is not the type of easy content that we want. This is an MMO, and Blizzard should be functioning on making the masses cooperate and work together. They need to look at restoring guilds to their former glory. The game is built around the strength of this raiding, and they need to look at removing throwaway content. It's easy to say, well, it's nice and convenient for the casual player, but you don't genuinely get too many casual players on an MMO. A lot of people seem to be in denial about this. If you're playing an MMO, you tend to spend a lot of hours a week on it, regardless of whether you class yourself as a casual player or not. I class myself as a relatively casual player. I could be on WoW, not at the moment, but I could easily be on WoW 20 to 30 hours a week without any difficulty whatsoever. So I would like to see Blizzard start to open their ears and properly listen. I would like to see some assertiveness by them. I would like to see some bold decisions made, and I'd like to see a proper direction for the game, because I don't feel that Mr. Pandaria has got that. I do think there is a distinct lack of what on earth are we doing, where are we going. Now, patch 5.4 is around the corner, and this brings along with it the Siege of Orgrimmar. And the Siege of Orgrimmar has to be special. It's probably the final big content patch before the end of the X-Pack. It does look like we're going to get a patch 5.5, but it will be like 5.1 and 5.3. And this siege has got a lot to live up to, because not only are we invading a capital city of one of the factions, not only are we going in to kill one of the leaders of said faction, but it's got to feel like a siege. It's got to feel exciting. It's got to feel dynamic. And although the boss fights which I've done so far on the PTR seem to be pretty fun, there has to be the immersion which goes alongside that. Because if it feels dead and dreary and boring, and it just packs of trash scattered here and there, I think it's going to lose people's interests very, very quickly indeed. And Blizzard not only might find themselves in a little bit of trouble with the next quarterly figures with patch 5.3, but a patch which absolutely 100% should raise the numbers of the game. This is an event which we've never ever seen before in the World of Warcraft. If it's not done right, it could be disastrous. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Is the game salvageable? Is the drop off in subscription numbers in your eyes expected? Did you think this was going to happen? Do you think the numbers are in free fall and Blizzard are going to be hard pressed to do something to turn this around? Or are you of the mindset that you believe Blizzard know exactly what they're doing and things will be rectified in the next X-Pack itself? But I hope you've enjoyed this chat. Please do like, comment and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook and also twitch.tv/heel versus babyface for live streaming. And I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. You take care, everybody. Bye bye.